Hi, I'm James Hamilton from Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, and today we're going to talk about how to clean and maintain the top of your table saw without doing any damage. A lot of weekend woodworkers only use their table saws occasionally, and when they're not using them, they're often stored in a garage or maybe some place that does not have climate control. So as the temperature raises and lowers, humidity can build up as condensation on top of the saw, and you get surface rust. So how do you clean that off? How do you keep it from happening? And how do you keep your saw so that the work pieces are just gliding across the top? Well, first you're going to have to remove that rust. Hopefully it's not too bad. It's just right on the surface. And if you see it, clean it off now so it doesn't get worse. You're going to have to do a little bit of sanding. Some people I see on the internet talk about using really aggressive sandpapers like 60 and 80 grit, or using wire brushes and things like that on top of their saws. I suppose if the whole thing is just caked with rust, and I mean it's as good as a total loss anyway, what do you got to lose? But I don't want to be that aggressive with the top of my saw if I can get away with it. If it's just a little rust on the surface, I'm not going to get any more aggressive than 400 grit sandpaper. This wet dry stuff you can get in automotive departments, and it's just aggressive enough to take off the surface rust with a little work, but it's not so aggressive that it isn't going to leave deep gouges in the top of your saw or give you an uneven surface when you're done. You definitely don't want that. So I stick to the 400 grit wet dry sandpaper. I lubricate it. You can use some mineral spirits. I actually just use some WD-40. The can says it'll kind of break the bond between the rust and the cast iron. I don't know if that's true. I just know it's handy to apply with the sprayer, and it lubricates the paper and gives me a little bit of a slurry to keep it from clogging up. I can do this by hand if I want to expend a lot of elbow grease, but you could also use a vibrating sander like this quarter sheet sander. However, when you use this, you don't want to get overly aggressive with it. Again, we want an even top. We don't want uneven spots. So don't hog down on one of the corners. You know, if you do that on wood, it's really going to eat into the material. You can apply pressure, but even downward pressure, not too much, and just go back and forth in even strokes. Let the sander do the work. If you have stains on top of your saw, like some unfortunate individual had to be killed because they came into your shop and put a cold drink on top of your saw, left a ring, honestly, I wouldn't fuss over those too much. That's deep in there. Just get it the best you can, but don't apply any more pressure to that area of the saw as you do to the other areas of the saw that don't have stains. Frankly, it's a tool. It's going to get stained up over time anyway. That just tells people that you actually use your saw. Once I've got all of my sanding done, then I have to clean off that slurry that's left behind. I use naphtha for that. This will break down all the grease, help you to wipe it all off, and leave behind a clean cast iron surface that's ready for a finish when you're done. The next process is to apply some paste wax. This stuff is available in cleaning departments at grocery stores. It's very handy for tools like this. I apply a nice coat on there and then I let it dry. I want it to get hazy and actually so it's kind of hard to rub a rag across. That's when you know it's time to buff it. Use a nice soft cloth, give it a buff. Make sure that that cloth is just gliding across there easy, and you're done. Now, how often do you have to do this? Well, hopefully you won't have to use the sandpaper very often, if at all. Now that you've cleaned it up and applied the wax, that's going to protect it from rust, as long as you keep that wax on there. That will wear off as you pass wood across it. So I would say, depending on how often you use your saw, maybe I do it about once a month. Maybe once every 2, 3 months, 6 months for you. Come back with your naphtha, no sandpaper, no WD-40, just naphtha. That'll clean off the old wax. It'll take off any resin that's left behind from wood, and then reapply your paste wax. You keep that on there, and it's going to make the top of your saw slippery so that the wood will glide across it evenly and it will protect it. One final thing, some people ask, will the wax transfer to the wood and will that affect your finish later? And I would say no. I haven't experienced that at all. Really, it's just a very thin coat. It's kind of hardened by the buffing process. Maybe on a molecular level, some wax could come off and get onto the wood, but you're not going to go right from the saw to the finishing table anyway. you're going to do some sanding or some scraping or planing, honestly, it's not going to be a problem. The wax is an excellent choice for the top of your saw. For more great tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker, be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal, which you can read and subscribe for free at stumpynubs.com. Happy buffing!